Immigration and Deportation, a quick overview and introduction to the English for Speakers of Other Languages Know Your Rights Toolkit.
This training and the toolkit have been prepared by the Center for Human Rights and International Justice at Boston College. But before we begin, a disclaimer. This presentation contains basic information about the U.S. immigration legal system. This information is not legal advice and is not a replacement for legal advice from a trained attorney. All information is current as of the date it was produced, March 17, 2017.
This training is organized in two parts. Part 1 provides an introduction to immigration and deportation in the United States. Part 2 provides an introduction to an English for Speakers of Other Languages Know Your Rights Toolkit. You may listen to both in one sitting, or start listening and come back to finish later. If you'd like to listen to the whole training, just keep watching. If you'd like to skip ahead to Part 2, just click here.
We will now give you a brief introduction to immigration and deportation in the United States.
When we talk about immigrants, we're actually talking about lots of different people with lots of different immigration statuses.
You're most likely to have heard about people with green cards, also called lawful permanent residents or LPRs.
You've also likely heard about undocumented or unauthorized individuals, or people who are out of status. These are individuals who either came to the United States of America without a lawful entry, or who entered legally but have overstayed their visa.
About 3/4 of a million people have been granted DACA, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. These are individuals who came to the United States as children and have been given a 2-year reprieve from deportation and a work permit.
Then there are those who have been granted protection by the U.S. government, either by receiving asylum, being resettled here as refugees, or who have been granted temporary protected status, a form of humanitarian relief granted to nationals of certain countries that are dealing with violent conflict or the aftermath of a natural disaster.
Many, many millions more enter the U.S. every year in a variety of temporary, non-immigrant statuses, such as visitor or student visas. What's important to note is that anyone who is not a citizen of the United States of America, so anyone in any of these categories, is possibly vulnerable to deportation.
Did you know that there are more than 40 million foreign-born individuals in the United States? That's about 13% of the country's population. And nearly half of them have already become U.S. citizens through the process of naturalization. Every year, about 1 million people receive green cards and become lawful permanent residents. There are also an estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States, and the vast majority of them, 72%, have been in this country for a decade or more. We also know that 4 million undocumented immigrants live in the U.S. with their U.S. citizen children.
When we talk about U.S. immigration, we are talking about a large and complex system. On the one hand, we have the Department of Homeland Security, made up of 3 main components. ICE, or Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This is the immigration police charged with carrying out detentions and deportations. CBP, Customs and Border Protection. These are the immigration officers that you will encounter at an airport, at the border, or at an immigration checkpoint. Then, there's USCIS, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, the branch that adjudicates requests for immigration benefits, such as applications for green cards, citizenship, or asylum. On the other hand, we have the court system. Starting off with immigration courts, staffed by judges employed by the Department of Justice, who decide cases of individuals who ICE believes are deportable. The decisions of immigration judges can be appealed to the Board of Immigration Appeals, and ultimately to the federal circuit courts. Even though numerous studies have shown that individuals with lawyers are more likely to win their deportation cases, the government does not have a duty to provide individuals with a lawyer, and less than half of individuals are represented by a lawyer in immigration court.
Deportation is the forced removal of an individual who is not a U.S. citizen from the United States. In the past 2 decades, we have seen a steady and unprecedented rise in deportations, with deportations topping 400,000 a year, in addition to hundreds of thousands of so-called voluntary returns. Individuals in deportation proceedings or awaiting deportation are detained in the nearly 40,000 detention beds that are spread throughout local jails and detention centers, many run by private, for-profit corporations. More than 400,000 people can be detained in any given year in this immigration detention system.
So, what can lead to deportation? Not having proper documentation, such as having entered illegally or having overstayed a visa or violated the conditions of a visa, can lead to deportation. Immigration violations and immigration fraud, such as falsely claiming to be a U.S. citizen or trying to enter the country with false documents, can also lead to deportation. A long list of criminal activities, many of them nonviolent, can lead to deportation, including drug offenses, theft offenses, and domestic violence offenses. Individuals can also face deportation based on security-related grounds, for example, for gang activity or terrorism.
So how does immigration enforcement come into contact with individuals who they believe are deportable? People can come into contact with immigration enforcement as a result of contact with the criminal justice system, or after having applied for an immigration benefit such as asylum or renewal of a green card. People can also come into contact with immigration at or near the border, at an internal immigration checkpoint, or at an airport. In fact, more than half of all deportations are of individuals detained at or near the border, or individuals who have previously been deported. People detained at or near the border, or at an airport, as well as individuals previously deported, can be placed in a fast-track deportation process and generally don't have the right to a hearing with an immigration judge. Over the years, immigration has also engaged in home or workplace raids, detaining those they believe are subject to deportation.
Now, we'd like to give you some information about a related tool that you can use in your ESOL class, the ESOL Know Your Rights Toolkit, an instructional resource for learning English and the rights of immigrants in the United States, including those who are undocumented.
Why did we develop this toolkit? Since the early 2000s, the Center for Human Rights and International Justice has facilitated Know Your Rights trainings for members of undocumented communities to help them inform and protect themselves as well as their loved ones. This information is always in high demand, but many people's busy schedules and multiple responsibilities make it difficult for them to attend trainings. Many of these same people also dedicate time each week to studying English. We asked ourselves, why not bring our trainings to ESOL classrooms? That's how the idea of the toolkit was born. Today, more than ever, we see its importance to students and teachers alike.
So, what does the toolkit contain? The toolkit is made up of 4 multi-lesson units, appropriate for documented and undocumented English language learners at the intermediate to advanced level. Each lesson can be taught as a standalone segment, or teachers can pull out activities and other content to combine with existing lesson plans.
The toolkit's units currently address 4 high-interest topics for immigrants: basic human rights, knowing your rights in a police car stop, protecting families in case of separation, including immigration detention and deportation, and understanding the U.S. public school system, including students' educational rights.
Each lesson features creative activities, like theater and role-playing, group art projects, and storytelling, inspired by educational traditions from people's movements in the Global South. These traditions focus on students' everyday experiences as important sources of knowledge and support students in taking action for social change.
Each unit addresses relevant legal topics and includes a legal FAQ for instructors, prepared by lawyers at the Migration and Human Rights Project at Boston College. While teachers using the toolkit direct conversations and activities that address these legal concerns, they are not positioned as legal experts in the classroom. Instead, they introduce very basic rights vocabulary and information to students, elicit students' experiences and local knowledge of laws, legal systems, and local enforcement practices, and finally, share community resources for legal support and advocacy, discussed further at the end of this presentation.
In this section of the presentation, we will discuss some common questions about teaching from the toolkit and best practices we've learned through pilots with our community partners at Casita El Salvador, Women Encouraging Empowerment, Inc., and Centro Presente, community-based organizations that serve immigrants in the greater Boston area. Some teachers have asked us, do students want to talk about the tough subjects covered in the toolkit?
Yes. Talking about our rights and conditions that challenge them is an important strategy for keeping ourselves and those we love safe and protected. And many already do, with friends, family, and perhaps even peers in their classes. Discussions raised by the toolkit are intended to support and enrich these other, more personal conversations going on elsewhere in students' lives. The topics covered may indeed sometimes recall challenging or private personal circumstances. The toolkit is designed to help students address these issues in a comfortable manner through the use of hypothetical scenarios and news stories, rather than personal disclosure.
Other teachers have wondered, will my students be asked to disclose their immigration status?
No, maintaining students' privacy is essential. The toolkit relies on hypothetical scenarios still relevant to learners' lives. While some students may choose to disclose information about their immigration status in the course of classroom conversations and other everyday situations, they are never prompted to do so by the toolkit.
We've also heard some teachers worry, I don't know enough about immigration to facilitate conversations about the topics covered in the toolkit. Immigration experiences and the law are both important and complex topics, and they seem intimidating to first approach them.
With the support of students' everyday insights elicited by lesson activities, our legal FAQs that provide basic rights and legal information relevant to each lesson, and suggestions from this presentation on finding additional community resources, you are well prepared to facilitate introductory conversations on the topics raised by the toolkit and to make appropriate referrals in response to unknowns.
Teachers have also asked us, what if students ask questions I can't respond to?
Take a deep breath. Remind yourself of all of the day-to-day necessities and uncertainties your students navigate outside your classroom and the resourcefulness and discernment that requires. Classroom conversations often open doors to additional community services and supports your students can make use of. For ideas and resources on making referrals to outside organizations for particular student needs, see the end of this presentation.
Some teachers we've worked with have wondered, are these topics too complicated to learn about and discuss in English?
It's true that learning English and one's rights at the same time can be challenging. At the same time, learning rights-related English vocabulary and talking points is critical for navigating important social interactions that can happen to anyone, like conversations with the police. It's information we all need, and many students are motivated to learn. To help facilitate this learning, each lesson includes intermediate to advanced level vocabulary to support these types of conversations and activities students can complete in English and/or their preferred language.
Finally, teachers we've worked with have asked, can I get more support to help my students navigate legal and social challenges they face living in the U.S.?
The answer is yes. The following organizations offer important resources for immigrant communities, including links to city and state-specific organizations and supports. We encourage you to explore them and to deepen your search for additional contacts in your area.
With that, we conclude this presentation on the ESOL Know Your Rights Toolkit. Thank you for listening, and congratulations on taking the initiative to learn more about these issues and to explore incorporating the toolkit into your classroom.
To sign up to download the toolkit and to obtain a certificate of completion for this course, visit the links below.
This presentation was proudly produced by the Boston College Center for Human Rights and International Justice.